At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
And away we go. Episode 1209 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. It is the 5-year anniversary of the Washington Wizards trading John Wall and a protected first-round pick to the Houston Rockets for Russell Westbrook. Yes, that trade happened 5 years ago, half of a decade ago, and the trade still has not been fully executed, as that protected first-round pick still is not conveyed. The reported terms of the protected first-round pick, 2023 lottery protected, 2024 top 12 protected, 2025 top 10 protected, 2026 top 8 protected. If the pick is not conveyed by the 2026 NBA draft, the pick becomes a second-round pick in 2026 and a second-round pick in 2027. Keeping that 2026 first-round pick is a big part of why our Wizards, again, are tanking this season, but only in the NBA. Do you get a trade that is 5 years old and yet still has not been fully executed? Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. We on Monday afternoon had the day after the game press conference of Washington Commanders head coach Dan Quinn. This off his team losing its 7th consecutive game. A 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football to fall to 3-9 in the NFL's 2025 regular season. Coming up on the show, a lot on the Commanders off the game and off the press conference. Next segment, reaction to the promotion of assistant quarterbacks coach David Blough to quarterbacks coach, and a breakdown of the latest on the QB1, Jayden Daniels, and the QB2, Marcus Mariota. How likely is Daniels playing in the team's game at the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday afternoon at 1? How possible is the team signing Mariota to a contract extension before the end of the season? The following segment, further discussion of the Commanders' offense, including the continued ascension of the offensive line and analysis of playing time in the overtime loss to the Broncos. And then the segment after that, conversation about the Commanders' defense, including Dan Quinn expressing an openness to remaining as the team's defensive coordinator, and analysis of playing time in the overtime loss to the Broncos. I find what is happening with interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton disturbing. I'll explain. And also on the show, I'll discuss our rebuilding and tanking Wizards. They on Monday night won for the second time in 3 games, a 129-126 win over the Milwaukee Bucks at Capital One Arena, despite being without 3 key guys in Alex Sarr, Trey Johnson, and Corey Kispert due to injury. This was a very nice win for our Wizards. So before we get to some feedback, some college football, what I feared would happen has happened. James Madison head coach Bob Chesney is leaving for another job. He's leaving to become UCLA head coach. That news broke via multiple reports on Monday afternoon, as it ended up being that Chesney was too good for JMU's own good. James Madison on December 7th, 2023 announced the hiring of Bob Chesney as head coach. He had spent the previous 6 seasons as the head coach for Holy Cross. JMU in the 2024 season went 9-4 overall, including 4-4 in the Sun Belt Conference. JMU this season is 11-1 overall, including 8-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. And so here we go again with JMU having to replace a head coach who did an outstanding job. Remember, Chesney replaced Curt Cignetti. He was named the head coach of Indiana on November 30th, 2023, and he is thriving at IU. But these departures of Curt Cignetti and Bob Chesney, of course, are credits to James Madison. Its football program has become so good good. It just unfortunately has become like a feeder system for Big Ten head coaches. So the reporting is that Chesney will coach JMU for the rest of its season. The Dukes are home to Troy Friday night at 7 in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game and have an outside shot at making the college football playoff. Going to be interesting to see how Chesney leaving impacts how JMU plays this Friday night. And of course, there now is the expected exodus of JMU players via the NCAA transfer portal. Also, the Baltimore Orioles, they on Monday evening officially announced having agreed with free agent reliever Ryan Helsley on a 2-year Major League contract for the 2026 and 2027 seasons, with a player opt-out following 2026. And a salute to Washington Capitals winger Tom Wilson. The NHL on Monday afternoon announced that he has been named the NHL's third star for the week ending November 30th. The Wilson, over 4 games for the Caps, had 4 goals and 4 assists as the Caps went 4-0-0. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Feedback on the Commanders off their overtime loss to the Broncos. Email from Devin Bradley on a question that a lot of people were asking during the game. Writes Devin, what's up with the way Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico are pronouncing Mariota? Annoying. Thank you for the email, Devin. We, during the opening segment of Monday's show, episode 1208, had some scheduled fun with this. We, on NBC's telecast of the game, heard play-by-play announcer Mike Tirico and analyst Chris Collinsworth consistently say Marcus Mariota with the T pronounced like a T, although Tirico and Collinsworth did deviate from that at times as the game went on. The way that we had always said and heard the last name of Marcus Mariota was with the T pronounced like a D. Tirico and Collinsworth on Sunday night for much of the game said Mariota with the T pronounced like a T. Here you go.
Mariota.
Yeah, that was Mike Tirico giving us a Mariota with the T pronounced like a T. So, you know how NBC during Sunday Night Football runs video of starting players introducing themselves? So Marcus Mariota in his video did say his last name as Mariota with the T pronounced like a T. Here was that.
Marcus Mariota, Oregon. Chris Rodriguez Jr.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth went off how Marcus Mariota said his last name, and that is usually the way to go with pronunciations. Ask the person how he or she wants the name said, or go by how the person says his or her name. The problem with saying the name is Mariota with the T pronounced like a T is that saying it that way sounds awkward and not at all conversational. Saying the name as Mariota with the T pronounced like a D, that sounds much more natural and conversational. Perhaps we'll get some clarification from Mariota if/when he does a post-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon. Email from Corey Schreiner. Writes Corey, Al, why on God's green earth would you give Denver the ball first against this horrendous defense? We were moving the ball, and the Broncos defense was exhausted. Coaching malpractice at the highest level. It still was a heck of a game, and we are on track with Lose Out 2.0. Hashtag HTTD. Hail to the draft pick. As always, thanks for following DMV Sports so that we don't have to. Thank you very much for that, Corey. I had no problem with Dan Quinn giving the Broncos the ball first in overtime. The current regular season overtime rules in the NFL are such that each team is guaranteed at least one possession. To me, the way to go, with rare exception, is to get the ball second in overtime because you, with that possession, know what you need to win/extend the game. A field goal or a touchdown, and thus can expand your offense to 4 downs. More information is better. You, in getting the ball second in overtime, have more information. So I had no problem with Dan Quinn giving the Broncos the ball first in overtime. The best argument against Quinn doing that to me would be that the Commanders' defense was gassed, and sure enough, it wilted in overtime. Allowed the Broncos on the opening drive of overtime to put together a 5-play, 76-yard touchdown drive. I thought that Dan Quinn, in terms of game management, did well on Sunday night. I agreed with him going for 2 in overtime. You, as the less talented team, want to shorten the game as much as possible. The longer that the game goes, so the more likely it is that the better team wins, and the play shoulda/woulda worked. Marcus Mariota, or is it Mariota? He on a shotgun dropback had his pass rejected by edge defender Nick Benito. This is the target. Running back Jeremy McNichols was wide open for a 2-point conversion. What I did not love from Dan Quinn was the way that the Commanders handled the end of the first half. The Commanders got the ball at their 35 with 16 seconds left in the second quarter while trailing 13-7, but having two first-half timeouts. But Quinn had Marcus Mariota, or is it Mariota, take a knee to end the half. I get what Quinn was thinking, but man, that was a very conservative approach. The Commanders getting a field goal via that possession, to me, was not unrealistic, but the Commanders decided to not even try to get a field goal on that possession. Hey, don't waste time this holiday season worrying whether your financial transactions are safe. You this holiday season can stay one step ahead of scams and keep your money secure with Cash App. Cash App's 24/7 fraud monitoring helps detect and alert you for unusual card activity should someone gain access to your card, so you can act fast if something seems off. You also can lock or unlock your Cash App card instantly right in the app for extra control and peace of mind. And if you're about to send money to someone for a deal that's too good to be true, and Cash App flags the deal as a potential scam, Cash App will warn you before you send the money. Cash App is here for you, and for a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use Cash App's exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real. Just download Cash App, use the exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner or partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
Planning a trip this year? Travel smarter and connect deeper by learning the local language with Rosetta Stone. With over 30 years of experience, Rosetta Stone's immersive, intuitive method helps you live the language, not just memorize it. Choose from over 25 languages, including Spanish, French, Japanese, and more. Their true accent speech recognition technology gives real-time feedback to help perfect your pronunciation. No translations, just natural learning that builds from words to phrases to full conversations. Whether you have 5 minutes or an hour, you can learn anytime on desktop or mobile. Get a lifetime membership and unlock all 25 languages. Learn as much as you want, whenever you want. Rosetta Stone. Learn confidently. Connect authentically. Don't wait. Unlock your language learning potential now. Listeners can grab Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for life. Visit rosettastone.com/pod50 to get started and claim your 50% off today. Don't miss out. Go to rosettastone.com/pod50 and start learning today.
Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. So it now is the case in the NFL's 2025 regular season that the Washington Commanders' QB2 has played more than the team's QB1 has played. Marcus Mariota, 404 offensive snaps. Jayden Daniels, 366 offensive snaps. Mariota, in the Commanders' 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football, was the Commanders' starting quarterback for the sixth time in 12 games in this regular season. He played on 100% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, so did not have a great game in terms of traditional stats, but did pretty well in terms of advanced stats, and a lot of that was him being clutch and facing a team with an elite defense. So Mariota for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 62.7. That's above average. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average. Mariota for the game, as of games through Sunday, had a total QBR per ESPN of 57.8. That's above average. QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100. 50 is average. Mariota for the game per RBSDM.com had an expected points added per play of 0.1 and a total EPA of 6.6. Marcus Mariota now has played enough to where he qualifies for various rate stats for NFL quarterbacks. He, for this regular season, as of games through Sunday, was number 16 out of 31 qualified NFL quarterbacks, and ESPN's total QBR, 57.4. He, for this regular season, as of games through Sunday, was number 15 out of 33 qualified NFL quarterbacks in expected points added per play per RBSDM.com. Marcus Mariota this coming offseason is set to be an unrestricted free agent. He, during his press conference off re-signing with the Commanders as an unrestricted free agent this past March, admitted that he had wanted to see what else was out there. He may still feel that way. But General Manager Adam Peters right now should be talking contract extension with Mariota. A multi-year contract extension would be for huge money, obviously, but this guy, over his 2 seasons as the team's QB2, has been so good in that role. He seems to genuinely like being on the team. Maybe, just maybe, an in-season contract extension can get done. Meantime, Jayden Daniels, he in this regular season has started just 6 of the Commanders' 12 games due to 3 different injuries. He has missed each of the team's last 3 games due to a dislocated left elbow. He suffered that in the Commanders' 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football on November 2nd. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he on Monday afternoon did a day after the game press conference. We joined that presser at this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
With Jayden, what is the plan this week? And, how much, if he's not yet clear for contact, how much would you need to see him practice full before putting him back in the game?
Yeah. Part of it's a little different, John, at the position because of it's not the normal contact like a linebacker or a running back. So it's more of the functional contact. Think of stiff arm on a bag. Think of, diving on the ground. So there's like more functional movements that he'll go through. He did some of that today, and he'll do more of that during the week. So the practice portion, for him throwing, like ripped a bunch today and threw it hard, it's the functional movement, John, that he'll continue to work with. So some of that actually will be in an individual and, working to the side. But we'll continue to work that part. And that's the step, that we need to see from the, let's say, like a functional evaluation, functional contact. And it's not traditional in the sense of like taking a hit.
Yeah, hard to say how likely Jayden Daniels playing in the Commanders' next game is. 3-9 Commanders at the 4-8 Minnesota Vikings this Sunday afternoon at 1. Dan Quinn right there did not sound overly optimistic. We later in his press conference on Monday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider Tom Schad of the Washington Post and Quinn.
And so just to clarify, has Jayden been cleared for contact?
Yep, not yet, Tom. He's still going through that process of the functional testing. And so I'll have a better sense as we go through the week, probably in terms of like the game, Tom. It'll be all the way till Friday, quite honestly, because the practice portions, that'll be ongoing in terms of like the evaluation and the movements and the contact. So he has not been for all the way through all the testing yet, Tom.
Then, if he's able to come back, and it kind of closes the chapter on Marcus's stint here as starter, what have you learned about him that maybe you didn't know coming into this season?
Man, that's a good question. I've known the leadership, but yesterday, like when it's time to will the team to go do that, that's really what I saw. I thought, the play passes and, using his arm, using his legs to go, Tom, I thought that came through, but in some of the winning time moments, just throwing absolute dimes. I thought it was like a warrior performance at quarterback. And sometimes those are hits and you stay in, you make them. But I had known who the leader was, but that solidified, just an absolute, put it on me kind of performance to go find a way.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota, very good work in filling in for Jayden Daniels. So while we're talking Commanders quarterbacks, we now know who the team's quarterbacks coach is. David Blough, no surprise, the overtime loss to the Broncos was the final game for Tavita Pritchard as the Commanders quarterbacks coach, as Stanford University this past Friday evening announced having hired Pritchard as head coach. The widespread expectation was that David Blough, who had been the Commanders' assistant quarterbacks coach, would take over for Pritchard, and sure enough, that's what's happening. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between John Keim and Dan Quinn.
Dan, with Tavita leaving, what's the plan now for quarterbacks coach?
David Blough will take the responsibilities of Tavita for the rest of the regular season, and definitely have been prepared for this at this position or at others, knowing that when opportunities are there for a guy to elevate like Tavita, we've got a good succession plan in place, and David would be a big part of that.
All right, so Dan Quinn saying that David Blough will serve as the Commanders' quarterbacks coach for the rest of the regular season. I'm guessing that nothing would change if the team made the postseason, which the team technically still can make. Some more clarity. We on Monday afternoon had this back and forth between Commanders insider Howard Fenrich of the Associated Press and Dan Quinn.
Hi, Dan.
Hi,
just wanted to follow up on what John was asking before. With David moving up as Pritchard leaves, is somebody going to move up to take over David's old role?
Yeah, we'll it actually will be as it goes through the whole season, David will take on the responsibilities of Tavita. As we're going to go, it's a position that from a league standpoint, we'll go through all the proper protocols that we need. But we're excited about David Blough. This is a really cool op and hit for him to go. Brian Johnson will also lean in, Howard, on some of the responsibilities. So we kind of split up, some of the things that Tavita did, and Brian will pick up, some of that gap as well. Brian Johnson, I'm talking about, Howard.
And will there be a new assistant?
Not in season. Not in season.
Okay.
Yep.
And Brian Johnson is the Commanders' assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator. Here is an outstanding book for you if you're a Washington fan, or for a Washington fan who you care about this holiday season. RFK All Access by Scott Cunningham, who served as a photographer for NFL properties for years and who photographed the Redskins extensively during their glory days in the 1980s and early 1990s. Scott, via RFK All Access, has put together a compilation of his best Redskins photos, many of which are behind-the-scenes photos. Joe Gibbs, Jack Kent Cook, Richie Pettibone, the Hogs, the Posse, Sonny Sam and Frank, all and so many more are featured in this book, which is 392 pages of glorious Skins history, 5 pounds of Redskins gold. If you are a serious Washington fan, if you are a Skins historian, this book is a must-have. Makes for a terrific addition to any Skins-themed man cave. Also makes for a great gift. I have the book. It is sensational. Heck, this is a book that has been endorsed by Joe Gibbs himself. Quote, "This is a great book filled with great memories," end quote. And the book now is available for an all-time low price. Take advantage of this special holiday season sale. RFK All Access. You can get the book by visiting rfkallaccess.com. And when you order the book, mention in the notes section that Al Galdi sent you. Doing that helps out this podcast a lot. That's rfkallaccess.com. rfkallaccess.com. And mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Washington Commanders' offensive line in the 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football was outstanding. And in this lost season for our team, it is the offensive line that, to me, has emerged as the team's number one positive. The Commanders' starting offensive line for a 6th consecutive game was Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Chris Paul at left guard, Tyler Biotish at center, Samuel Cosme at right guard, and Josh Connerly Jr. at right tackle. Each of the Commanders' starting 5 offensive linemen played on 100% of the team's offensive snaps, and the Commanders' offensive line did a tremendous job, especially in pass protection against the Broncos defense that for the 2025 regular season through Week 12 was number 1 in the NFL in sacks at 49 and was number 2 in the NFL in sack percentage at 11.72. The Commanders, for the NFL's next-gen stats, held the Broncos to a pressure rate of just 17.9%. That is the Broncos' lowest pressure rate in a regular season game since their 70-20 loss at the Miami Dolphins on September 24th, 2023. Remember that game? A 70-20 Broncos loss at the Dolphins. That game happened 1 week after a 35-33 Commanders win at the Broncos. So also, Laramie Tunsil, he for the NFL's next-gen stats in 28 pass-blocking matchups with edge defender Nick Bonito, allowed just 2 pressures. Tunsil for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 75.4. Josh Connerly, he for the NFL's next-gen stats in 26 pass-blocking matchups with edge defender Jonathan Cooper, allowed 0 pressures. Connerly for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 76.9. Sam Cosmi, he for the NFL's next-gen stats, over 55 pass blocks, allowed just 1 pressure. He for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 91.4. What a job by the Commanders' offensive line. Now, the line did commit some penalties, so while the Commanders as a team had just 5 accepted penalties for 35 yards, 3 of the penalties were by offensive linemen. 1st and 10 for the Commanders at the Broncos 11 with 2:47 left. In the second quarter, Brandon Coleman committed a 5-yard illegal formation penalty. Coleman played on just 3% of the Commanders' offensive snaps, but he had a penalty. 3rd and 4 for the Commanders at the Broncos 49 with 1:23 left in the third quarter. Laramie Tunsil committed a 5-yard false start penalty. And on a 3rd and 4 for the Commanders at the Broncos 30 with 4:04 left in overtime, Josh Connerly committed a killer 10-yard offensive holding penalty, negating a 30-yard touchdown reception by receiver Terry McLaurin. But still, really good work by the Commanders' offensive line. We, during Commanders head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Quinn.
Just curious your general thoughts of the offensive line play, especially going against Denver's pass rush, but also just overall this season.
Yeah, let's start just first with the game. I think that, with going in, I thought this is a team that really has, kind of showed who they can be, from the pass rush standpoint. So we thought going in, this would be some runs and the play action passing game. I thought that was the real key to it, Nikki. If we could even have some runs that weren't, there might be a 0 or a 1 yard, and then stay with it to have some of the run actions come to life. And so I thought that was the biggest thing. But I was pleased with the pass protection in the game. It just felt like that they were up for the challenge. It's a very good pass rushing unit, blitzing as well. And I thought the running backs protected well. So that part I was pleased with.
And just looking at the 5 up front, I mean, how have they gelled together, especially with Laramie coming in, Chris Paul stepping into a bigger role? How have you kind of seen them become more cohesive? Yeah,
I thought it might have been Sam's best game, so that was good. That I would feel like, bigger comp, from, I'm talking about across the board for them to go. Not that he hasn't played talented guys, he does that all the time, but I just thought their stunts, their blitz package, that part was good. I felt like him and Josh have felt more cohesive. And like that continuity is helping Nikki because now they've been in that rhythm, good bit together. Chris and Laramie had quite a bit of reps together, but now the fact that, the combinations with Sam and Josh, that's a big deal. And I thought Biotis also, were ones on the pass protection side, maybe Sam and Josh and Tyler. I thought some of their best, jobs in pass protection.
So you look at what we have here. Laramie Tunsil, Tyler Biotis, Sam Cosmi, and Josh Connerly all are under contract for next season, though Tunsil this offseason likely will be looking for a big money contract extension. Chris Paul is set to be an unrestricted free agent for this coming offseason, but he should not cost a ton and would seem to be an easy re-signing. It just may be that as horrible as this season has been, the Commanders have found a quality offensive line, and that the same recent starting 5 will be the starting 5 for Week 1 of the 2026 regular season, and that the team will go into this coming offseason essentially set with the offensive line. And the offensive line, of course, was a big part of the Commanders' rushing offense in the overtime loss to the Broncos doing well. Commanders running backs in the game, Chris Rodriguez Jr., Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and Jeremy McNichols combined for 21 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown. Chris Rodriguez had 11 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown, had no receptions on 1 target. He played on 41% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. How about his touchdown run? 1st and goal for the Commanders at the 8. Rodriguez Rodriguez had an 8-yard pistol handoff touchdown run with 2:21 left in the second quarter. This was a run up the middle and a violent run on which Rodriguez ran through safety Brandon Jones. So Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he had 4 carries for 20 yards, had no targets. He played on 14% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And Jeremy McNichols had 6 carries for 30 yards, had 2 receptions for no yards on 2 targets. He played on 49% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. 3rd and 13 for the Commanders at the Broncos 39 with 34 seconds left in the first quarter. McNichols had an outstanding 16-yard shotgun handoff run and on a 4th and 1 for the Commanders at their 35 with 2:17 left in the fourth quarter. McNichols had a 2-yard shotgun handoff run. First time in a while that we had a game in which 3 Commanders running backs each stood out. No Austin Eckler, of course. He remains on the reserve/injured list. Commanders receivers in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Terry McLaurin, so good to have him back. He returned from a 3-game absence caused by a re-injured quadriceps that he suffered in the Commanders' 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th. McLaurin in that game returned from a 4-game absence caused by the quadriceps injury, which he initially suffered in the Commanders' 41-24 win over the Las Vegas Raiders at Northwest Stadium on September 21st. McLaurin in this overtime loss to the Broncos, 7 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown on 14 targets and playing on 51% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. He supposedly was on a pitch count, but he blew through that pitch count. Did get called for a crucial 5-yard false start penalty, but that was a bad call. McLaurin for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 78.5. Deebo Samuel Sr., he had 5 receptions for 64 yards on 7 targets and had 2 carries for -3 yards. He played on 70% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Treylon Burks, he returned from a 1-game absence caused by a finger injury, 1 reception for 5 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets and playing on 66% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And the touchdown reception, of course, was that sensational one-arm catch in the end zone. Jalen Lane, no receptions on 1 target. He played on 39% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Chris Moore, no targets and playing on 28% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey remain on the reserve/injured list. And while we're talking receivers, the Commanders on Friday morning announced having released receiver Robbie Chosen, and the Commanders on Saturday afternoon announced having placed receiver Ja'Cory Brooks on the practice squad injured list. Commanders tight ends in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Zach Ertz had 10 receptions for 106 yards on 13 targets. He did have a drop and another catch that he could have made but didn't. He played on 67% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And how about this? Ertz moved to being number 5 in NFL history in regular season receptions by a tight end and moved to being number 8 in NFL history in regular season receiving yards by a tight end. Zach Ertz may well be a future Pro Football Hall of Famer. You know, the 2025 Commanders, as poorly as they've done, they have 4 future Pro Football Hall of Famers. Think about this. Ertz, Laramie Tunsil, linebacker Bobby Wagner, and edge defender Von Miller. Is each guy not a potential/likely Pro Football Hall of Famer? When's the last time that Washington had a team with at least 4 Pro Football Hall of Famers? John Bates, he had 2 receptions for 9 yards on 2 targets and playing on 51% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Ben Sinnott returned from a 1-game absence caused by an ankle injury. He had no targets and playing on 17% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. And Colson Yankoff had 1 reception for 14 yards on 1 target and playing on 4% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. Catering by Uptown. It provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, a wedding, a holiday party, whatever, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you go to cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. More now on the Washington Commanders off their 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football, and off head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon. Let's talk Commanders defense. So how well an NFL defense does is so dependent on who that defense plays. The three biggest determining factors for how well an NFL defense does are talent, scheme, and opposition, and not necessarily in that order. The Commanders' overtime loss to the Broncos was the Commanders' second game with Dan Quinn serving as defensive coordinator off him on November 10th, having announced having demoted Joe Witt Jr. and having taken over as defensive coordinator. And the defense for a second consecutive game showed improvement. What is tricky is that these first two games with Quinn as defensive coordinator have come against mediocre offenses. The Commanders, in their 16-13 overtime loss to the Miami Dolphins in Madrid, Spain on November 16th, faced a Dolphins team that for the 2025 regular season through Week 10 was number 25 in the NFL in total offense per DVOA, and the Broncos for the 2025 regular season through Week 12 were number 15 in the NFL in total offense per DVOA. In fairness to our friend Joe Witt, his final four games as Commanders defensive coordinator came against a vicious gauntlet of opposing offenses, and those are the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Detroit Lions. All of that said, the Commanders defense with Dan Quinn as defensive coordinator, with DQ as DC, has been a lot better than what we were seeing from the defense with Joe Witt as defensive coordinator. By the way, Witt on the Commanders official site still is listed as the team's defensive coordinator. But what about beyond this season? Joe Witt almost certainly will be gone from the team once we get to this coming off season. How possible is it that Dan Quinn, who has an excellent track record as an NFL defensive coordinator, will remain as the Commanders' defensive coordinator? On Monday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Quinn.
Dan, this is more of a future question, but I'll just ask it now. You obviously chose to have Joe Witt be your defensive coordinator because part of your thinking was you wanted to delegate a bit more. Now that you've done this a couple games, is there a world where you could be the play caller next year?
I think, yeah, there's a possibility of that. As we're going through it, I'm finding a battle rhythm to go. So I'm not sure where I'm at on that yet, Ben. I haven't, discussed or gone down that road too far yet, but I would say that's a possibility.
Interesting. Dan Quinn sounding pretty open to remaining as the Commanders' defensive coordinator beyond this season. Like I said, he has an excellent track record as an NFL defensive coordinator. We on Monday afternoon had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
You obviously have been juggling a couple of hats the last couple of weeks, second straight game, calling the defensive plays, also being the head coach. Have you found your rhythm? Have you found your groove? How have you felt kind of juggling both hats?
It definitely took into the second week. I feel much more settled in week 2, the week 1 version, and then adding the trip, to Spain. I thought all of that space with the guys, it took me probably till game day till I felt, comfortable in that. And then this week, we found a great structure. Joe's been incredibly supportive, Scott, to help and assist, and we kind of found our rhythm together quickly. We had plenty of experience doing that before together, and so I certainly appreciated him stepping into that space with me as well. So it took probably 2 weeks, Scott, to finally capture the flow and the rhythm of it, team meetings, defensive meetings, that type of thing. But I feel in a good space today.
All right, playing time analysis regarding the Commanders' defense in this overtime loss to the Broncos. What is happening with Johnny Newton, to me, is disturbing. The Commanders took him in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of the University of Illinois. He had an underwhelming rookie season, and this season is not playing much. In fact, he played the least of the 5 Commanders' interior defensive linemen who played on defense on Sunday night. Daron Payne returned from his NFL-issued one-game suspension without pay. The NFL on November 10th announced that Payne had been suspended without pay for 1 game for throwing a punch at Detroit Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. This during the Commanders' 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on November 9th. Payne, in this overtime loss to the Broncos, played on 63% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Javon Kinlaw, 66%. Sheldon Day, 31%. Eddie Goldman, 30%. Johnny Newton, 29%. Not good that Johnny Newton late in his second season is playing less than Sheldon Day and Eddie Goldman. All due respect to Sheldon Day and Eddie Goldman. Commanders' edge defenders in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Jacob Martin played on 71% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Preston Smith, 44%. Von Miller, 36%. But most interesting to me was the Commanders going with this guy, TJ Magaranyanga, over Jalen Holmes. Magaranyanga played on 16% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Holmes was a healthy and active. Now, you may be saying, who the heck is TJ Magaranyanga? Well, the Commanders this past April 3rd announced the signing of TJ Magaranyanga. He's from Zimbabwe, has been a professional rugby player, and is part of the Commanders as part of the NFL's International Pathway Program. The Commanders this past Saturday afternoon announced having elevated Magaranyanga from the practice squad for this game. 4 key Commanders edge defenders remain on the reserve/injured list. Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise Jr., Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and Drake Jackson. And so that's how you wind up with TJ Magaranyanga playing for you in a game in late November. Commanders linebackers in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu each played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jordan McGee played on just 34% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but he for the game had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 79.7. Nick Bellore and Kane Madrano each did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but did play on special teams. Ale Cajo was a healthy inactive. Commanders cornerbacks in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Mikey Sainristil played on 100% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jonathan Jones, 99%. Noah Igbenogany, 66%. Antonio Hamilton Sr. did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, did play on special teams. 2 key Commanders corners remain on the reserve/injured list. Marshawn Lattimore and Trey Amos. And Commander safeties in the overtime loss to the Broncos. Good to have Will Harris back. He played on 79% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. So this in his return from the reserve/injured list. He was on that from September 22nd to this past Saturday due to a fractured fibula. He suffered that in the Commanders' 41-24 win over the Las Vegas Raiders at Northwest Stadium on September 21st. Quan Martin played on 96% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Jeremy Reeves, 41%. Percy Butler and Tyler Owens each did not play on any of the Commanders' defensive snaps, but did play on special teams. And Darnell Savage was a healthy inactive. I tell you, some surprising healthy inactives for the defense for this game in Jalen Holmes and Darnell Savage. But regarding Will Harris, we on Monday afternoon had this exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Dan, how did Will Harris look to you in his first game back in a while?
Yeah, it was it was good to have Will and Terry back into it, David. I thought I knew Will would tackle. This guy's a tough competitor, and that part was good. I liked the disguise that he had, and I thought that was going to be a big part for us in this game. Could we change some of the looks post-snap? And going in practice, he was on it. Going in, and that just kind of carried into the game. I like Jeremy and Quan and him and, moving those guys into some different spaces. But I thought it was a good first outing, David, for not being, in it for a good while. That was a good start. And he was conditioned. He was ready to go. I thought that was a big first step.
Yeah, the Commanders missed Will Harris. And one more item from the Commanders' overtime loss to the Broncos, a salute to punter Tress Way. He over 4 punts averaged 42.3 yards per punt and 39.8 net yards per punt, but he had a clutch punt in the fourth quarter. On a 4th and 21 for the Commanders at their 25 with 3:42 left in the fourth quarter, Way blasted a 56-yard punt to the Broncos' 19. Punt returner and receiver Marvin Mims Jr. did generate a 10-yard return, but this was a big punt by Way, especially off the Commanders earlier on the drive, having gotten jobbed by the officials on a 2nd and 9 for the Commanders at their 37 with 4:13 left in the fourth quarter. Marcus Mariota officially was sacked by edge defender Dondre Tillman for a 12-yard loss, but Tillman on the play was guilty of tripping Mariota. That should have resulted in a penalty on Tillman. That play was a big swing, right? What should have been a penalty on the Broncos instead was a 12-yard loss for the Commanders. But Tress Way came through in a big way with that punt.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
Planning a trip this year? Travel smarter and connect deeper by learning the local language with Rosetta Stone. With over 30 years of experience, Rosetta Stone's immersive, intuitive method helps you live the language, not just memorize it. Choose from over 25 languages, including Spanish, French, Japanese, and more. Their true accent speech recognition technology gives real-time feedback to help perfect your pronunciation. No translations, just natural learning that builds from words to phrases to full conversations. Whether you have 5 minutes or an hour, you can learn anytime on desktop or mobile. Get a lifetime membership and unlock all 25 languages. Learn as much as you want, whenever you want. Rosetta Stone. Learn confidently. Connect authentically. Don't wait. Unlock your language learning potential now. Listeners can grab Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for life. Visit rosettastone.com/pod50 to get started and claim your 50% off today. Don't miss out. Go to rosettastone.com/pod50 and start learning today.
Well, believe it or not, our rebuilding and tanking Washington Wizards now have won 2 of their last 3 games, including a really impressive win on Monday night, a 129-126 win over the Milwaukee Bucks at Capital One Arena to improve to 3-16 in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season, in which the Bucks now are 9-13. The Wizards overcame a 16-point third-quarter deficit. They won the fourth quarter 38-32. And they won the game despite being without 3 key players due to injury. Alex Sarr did not play due to right adductor soreness. Trey Johnson did not play for a 4th consecutive game due to a left hip flexor strain. And Corey Kispert did not play for a 2nd consecutive game due to a right thumb injury. And yet the Wizards won. They won despite allowing the Bucks to go 21 for 38 on threes and 25 for 46 on twos. But the Wizards did a respectable job on the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, who over the years has slaughtered the Wizards. He, in 31 minutes, 36 seconds as a starter, had 26 points, 7 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, and 4 assists. He went 0 for 1 on threes, 10 for 16 on twos, and just 6 for 11 on free throws. He got his, no doubt, but he also committed 5 turnovers and fouled out. And a big part of the Wizards' defense on Giannis was Bilal Coulibaly, who in the closing seconds of the game had a steal and a transition dunk. The steal came via him intercepting a pass for Giannis. So here was the call. Dave Johnson on the Washington Wizards radio network.
At the hash mark right wing, Rollins into Giannis. 13 seconds left. Guarded by Coulibaly. Now left wing outside the arc, Turner. Back out front for Giannis. Broken up by Coulibaly to the basket. Slam! Slam! Below! The flex! The slam! And 1! Giannis, the foul. Giannis is fouled out. The Wizards are up 129-123. And the Wizards, they might be about to win.
They were, and Wizards head coach Brian Keefe, he began his post-game press conference on Monday night by heaping praise on Bilal Coulibaly. This was Keefe during the opening statement of his presser, and then you'll hear an exchange between Wizards insider Josh Robbins of The Athletic and Keefe.
I'll start it off. Bilal. Let's just talk about Bilal first. His imprint on the game all over the place defensively. Steals, blocks, deflections. Made obviously the big play late, but he did it from the very beginning. And that's what we talked about as a group. We talked about this before the game with you guys a little bit. We were 3 for 19 in the first half from 3. It didn't stop us from guarding, defending, hustling, scrapping. Sometimes you have to grind out games in the NBA. We grinded that one out because of our defense, and Blough was the head of that for sure tonight. You guys got questions? Go ahead.
Brian, what specifically did you think made Blough as effective as he was defensively there? Was it technique? Was it effort? Was it...
He used his gifts that he has, but it was also his mentality. No possessions off, contested every pass, every dribble, every shot, pressured their main player. I thought it was just a terrific all-around effort from him, and it wasn't about scoring. It was just he was doing what his job was necessary to help us win the game, and then he obviously made a couple plays there late, made a big 3, but it was his defense that set the tone for the whole team.
Yeah, such a good game for Bilal Coulibaly. He did not have a monster game statistically, but he may have been the Wizards' MVP in this game. The Wizards' offense was good. They went 13 for 36 on threes and 40 for 66 on twos, and outscoring the Bucks in the paint 58-34. Also, the Wizards had 29 assists versus 10 turnovers, and the Wizards had 14 offensive rebounds to the Bucks 7, and thus 20 second chance points to the Bucks 10. A big part of that was Marvin Bagley III. He played for the first time in 5 games, this off having been a DNP CD, off having missed the Wizards' previous 3 games due to a right hip contusion. He in 29-15 as a starter went 0 for 1 on threes and 11 for 15 on twos. Did not attempt a free throw. He finished with 22 points and 8 rebounds, including 6 offensive boards. The Wizards' leading scorer was C.J. McCollum. He in 35-34 as a starter went 4 for 11 on threes, 7 for 10 on twos, and 2 for 3 on free throws. He finished with 28 points, 5 assists versus no turnovers, and 4 rebounds. And the Wizards got major contributions from reserves. Kim Whitmore, he in just 19-24 off the bench, had 17 points and 5 rebounds. He went 1 for 3 on threes and 7 for 11 on twos. He did not attempt a free throw. Tristan Vukcevic, he has not had a good season so far, but he in 19-43 off the bench had 16 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists versus no turnovers. He went 1 for 3 on threes, 3 for 4 on twos, and 7 for 8 on free throws. And Justin Champagnie, he in 19-16 off the bench had 10 points, 8 rebounds, including 6 offensive boards, 2 blocks, and 2 assists versus no turnovers. He went 0 for 1 on threes and 5 for 7 on twos. He did not attempt a free throw. More from Brian Keefe during his post-game press conference on Monday night.
Team win. Look at our bench, what they did, the contributions of all the guys who came in, Tristan, Cam, JC, Bob. I don't know what the total points they had, but I think it was pretty high. They all contributed, and they sustained us going to the fourth quarter, got us back in the game. Thought those guys were terrific in both halves tonight. It was a total team win. Nice job by those guys.
Yes, it was. Next up for the Wizards is a game on Tuesday night at the Philadelphia 76ers, Tuesday night at 7. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Wednesday show, episode 1210, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, Maryland basketball, and Virginia Tech basketball. The Caps are at the Los Angeles Kings Tuesday night at 10:30. The Wizards are at the Philadelphia 76ers Tuesday night at 7. The Terrapins are home to Wagner Tuesday night at 8, and the Hokies are at South Carolina Tuesday night at 7 in the ACC SEC Challenge. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Marcus Mariota, Oregon. Chris Rodriguez Jr.
Love the night? Reach for Zyn After Dark, a limited cocktail-inspired series for those who get up when the sun goes down. Try Zyn's Mojito, spiced cider, and espresso martini nicotine pouches. Find them at select retailers. Available while supplies last. Zyn After Dark. Bring on the night. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.